Thank you for being here. How many people here again are OSCs? Or how many people here are preparing for your assessment? Okay, quite a few more. Okay, so you hear a lot. I mean, today is really a treat because you hear from MSP, RPO, the government, right, POA, and Cyber AB. Now we're going to take a look at the assessment and learn some of the pitfalls I actually came across, and I want to share with you. Okay, and we have assessed quite a few defense contractors from small, like 3 people company, all the way to large, Fortune 500 organization, and. Actually, I love Puget Sound area because I used to work here for Microsoft and Boeing. So it's really great to be back. So KLC, we're a C3 PAO. I myself lead assessor, and we have several lead assessors in our organization. We have been in business since 2002, but focused on the CMMC and NIST 800-171 since 2020, since the version 1. So I know a lot of the speakers since 2020. So it's great to be, have this. It's great to have the people that have been involved since the beginning of CMMC and to hear about their perspective. Okay, if you have any feedback, feel free to send to me. Okay, so we are going to talk about the CMMC. Just a quick overview. We already went through, other speakers already talked a lot about the basic foundation about the CMMC, so I'm not going to cover too much of it, just a quick overview. Then we're going to get into the CMMC assessment process, just at a high level. But then we're going to talk about the common pitfalls. And feel free to ask me questions, because this, try to make it interactive. Okay, there's going to be a quiz after this. All right. On the last page, I think on the last page of the booklet, the program booklet, there are some key, there's not going to be so many acronyms, but there are important acronyms that you need to know. So just go through that. We are going to focus on CMMC Level 2. I'm going to go through this. DFAR. So this is the DFAR 7021, the CMMC. I'm going to just go through a very quick, because this is what's on the program. I just make it a diagram. It's easier to read. So there are 3 different roles: contracting officer, prime contractor, and the subcontractor. Let's just take a look at the DoD prime contractor. They get their requirements from the DoD program office. Now they add these requirements, so CMMC levels. If you're curious about who defines the CMMC level for the contract, the program office, they define it. DoD contracting office that they put into the solicitation, RFP, RFI. So once they figure out who is going to win the contract, they will define, they are going to verify, do you have a CMMC certification, right? And then look at the CMMC UID, unique ID. If an organization have a CMMC certification or self-assessment, you will have a CMMC unique ID. They're going to verify that in the SPRS system. So once you have the contract award, you go to the prime contractor, and they will have to submit their annual information, right? And they have to notify the system changes to the contracting officer. And also have to report if there are any new systems, new CMMC unique ID, CMMC UID, back to the contracting officer, right? And the contracting officer, they have to make sure that the contract stay in continuous compliance. And then they will also have to verify, right, all these CMMC UID and this SPRS, if there's a new if there are new CMMC UID or if there are any annual information they're going to verify is staying compliant. And so the contract award can continue to move forward. All right, so, and there is a flow down. Flow down, there is a requirement for the prime contractors to flow down the requirements to the subcontractors, right? And the subcontractors, they have to, so before they can really give the award, the prime contractors will have to verify if the subcontractor will have the CMMC, had the CMMC unique ID, do they have a CMMC certification? Prime contractors do not have access to the SPRS system. That means that the subcontractors will need to provide a screenshot to the prime contractor to show that, hey, we do have a CMMC level 1, level 2, whatever required levels from the prime contractors to the sub. So, and the subcontractors, they're from the DFAR 7021, what's in the rule is that they have to make sure the subcontractors will have to submit the annual information. There is no requirement to report any system changes or any new IDs to the DoD contracting officers, because DoD contracting officers has no idea what's the contract between the prime and the sub. However, obviously it's going to be important for the prime contractors. They issue some kind of requirements for the subcontractors to report back to the prime. It's not in the DFAR 7021, but I'm expecting the prime will need to have that feedback loop. Okay, so that's a nutshell. This is DFAR 7021. Now you know. Okay, we already went through this several times as well. So just want to mention, this is the minimum requirement. Phase 1, we talked about phase 1, self-assessment, that's a minimum requirement. DoD contracting officers, they have the discretion to move up the requirements. So some of the draft, RFP, RFI, you already see some CMMC Level 2 certification requirement during the phase 1. So just be aware of it. And also in reality, the prime contractors, they know some of the RFPs that are coming out a year ahead. So they're going to start selecting the subcontractors who they are going to partner with 6-8 months before the RFP, RFI is coming out. So just be aware of that. You want to get the CMMC, ahead of time so you can be able to work with the prime contractors. Okay, so here are some important, obviously there are more documents you need to know, but first one is the CMMC assessment process. I think Joy and also several people already mentioned about the CMMC assessment process. You want to be able to understand what process, what to expect, right? And there is a scoping guide. Ace already mentioned, discussed about the scoping point of view, in quite detail. So, but you want to look at the CMMC scoping guide so you have an understanding in terms of what the expectations are. Right. Assessment guide, this is something that the assessor will use. So you want to see if there are some controls that you are not too sure what we're looking at. As an assessor, what the assessors are looking at, you want to take a look and see what's the detail they have. They have covered some details for each of the the requirements. Okay. I'm covering, this is what's expected for the assessment, but before we actually get into the assessment planning process, there is something called pre-assessment. So during the pre-assessment, we'll ask the OSC to provide us the system security plan, your CUI scoping diagram, your network diagram, your SA inventory. What we want to see is that you have, your SSP is not 20 pages.
right? If your SSP is 20 pages, most likely you're not ready. So we want to make sure that we get understanding in terms of what you have. Are you actually ready to pursue with the actual certification assessment? If you are, if you feel that you are ready, we'll make that determination. You are ready for the assessment. We move into the assessment phase, and that's when we start the assessment planning. Then we're going to work out all the logistics, ask you to provide more artifacts to us so we can plan for the actual assessment. And the assessment interview week, usually we start with the kickoff, the in-brief, and at the end of the day, we have what we call the end of day touch point, just to have you understanding if there are any missing artifacts that you should provide to us, or if there are anything that's trending not met, we want to communicate that. So if you have any additional artifacts that you can provide to us, provide that so we can get enough information so we can make our final decision on the requirements, if they are met or not met. And at the end of the assessment week, usually the assessment, if you don't have many sites that we need to go, usually we'll be able to conduct the assessment during that 1 week. And at the end of that week, we'll let you know if there are anything that's still trending not met, or if there are anything that we still require additional artifacts. You will have the 10 business days, have the opportunity to provide us additional information. After that 10 business days, then we're going to go through and upload, make the decision, determination if there are anything that's met or not met. If you have the assessment results, we'll provide that for you. And what we call the outbrief, we'll give you an official outbrief in terms of if you are 110, have the final status, or if you're above the 88, you have the conditional status. Okay. And then we'll upload the information to what they call the DoD EMAS system. Once we upload the DoD EMAS, the results to the DoD EMAS system, it will be automatically transfer the results to your SPRS system. Just a FYI, if you happen to be not passing, below 88 points, then the results are not going to be uploaded to the EMAS system at this time. Okay. Usually, what it means is that your certification assessment will become a mock assessment. You have to do it again. Okay. After the post-assessment, we'll issue you the certificate if you achieve the conditional or the final status. Okay. Many of you probably are curious what do assessors look for, and this is what we look for. If you want to actually download and see, this is kind of like a playbook that we use as the assessor. So this is an open book exam, right? Where we don't want any surprises. We'll let you know what we're looking for during the assessment, and on site, if there is a physical on site, we'll let you know what we look for during our on site. Okay, and just a very quick. Originally, this is developed by the DIPCAC organization, right? And we just make some modification, but it's something that you can look for. Okay, let's take a look at the common mistakes. So I listed out 11 of them. Okay, so first one, inadequate artifacts and demo preparation. So when we go through the assessment, right, some of these organizations, they have not been prepared, and they have not gone through the gap analysis, so they don't really know what to expect. If you have hired some of these speakers and all these
If you have hired some CMMC professionals to help you, or if you have somebody internal that really knows CMMC, I think it really will help you to prepare for the artifacts that assessors are looking for, right? Because you don't want to show up on day one. If you don't provide enough artifacts to us as an assessor, we are going to take a little bit more time to ask for the demos, and also take more screenshots during the assessment. And also just to make sure that when you do a demo, when we start our assessment, you have somebody who really know how to do the demo to be attending the assessment, because that could be another problem. Hey, show us this. Yeah, this person is on vacation. He won't be back for 3 weeks, so there will be a problem. There will be a delay. Okay. All right, and also the second one is the existing practice. They do not match the documentation. If you have documented that, for example, we do the vulnerability scan every week, and you are actually doing it in reality, you're doing it for once every month, right? There's a mismatch of what you documented versus what you actually do, your practice. So just avoid to have that mismatch, because if you do it more frequently, that's okay. But if you don't do it enough, right? When you say weekly, but you actually do it monthly, that'll be a problem. Okay. Mock assessment. I think we talked about the mock assessment. Mock assessment is something that we call it as a C3PAO. We do this as a practice test, right? You don't go to take your you don't usually go to take your SAT without doing a practice test, right? You don't want to just take your SAT the very first time you're in the real exam. Same thing, you want to do some practice test, right? Practice. The mock assessment is something C3PO offer. There are other C3POs. They offer this as a practice, and if there are any deficiencies, we'll document there are deficiencies. As a C3PO, we are not allowed to provide a remediation, recommendation, or consulting, but we can let you know you have these deficiencies. Once you resolve, we can come back for the actual official certification assessment. Right, so just avoid going into the certification assessment for the first time without going through any gap analysis by your consultant, or just don't do it for the first time. We have one client actually probably did that. We did not dig in too far, but that did not go well, because the person were OSC that were actually going through this assessment with us, clearly had a hard time going through providing all the information we asked for. Okay, all right. And number 4 is the scoping. We talked about, ACE, and talked a lot about the scope, right? Boundary. There's one more thing, is the cage code. You have to make sure you have the cage code properly aligned. Set up your, if you only have one cage code, make sure the information is up to date, right? In your SAM.gov, I think it will be okay. If you have multiple cage codes, make sure you have the cage code hierarchy. There's something called HLO, the highest level ownership. So you just want to make sure that you have the cage code hierarchy in place, because if you don't have it in place and you have multiple cage codes, we will issue you the certificate with multiple cage codes, but you may not show up properly on your SPRS. So just make sure you have that. Make sure you have the cage code hierarchy set up properly. Okay, and number 5 is the configuration baseline. There are a few organizations we went through. They have multiple systems, the tools, devices within their organization. They have Windows, Linux, firewalls. When we look for the configuration configuration baseline. We're looking for the baseline for each of those devices, right? So if you have Windows, Linux, Mac, don't just show Windows. You know, hey, we have Intune, we have all these configuration. How about Mac? How about the Linux systems? Make sure you don't forget them. Okay, number 6 is we talked about the specialized assets. These are OT, operational technologies, your IoT devices or something like that. If you do have those systems in scope, and also CRMA, contractor risk managed assets, make sure you have them documented, included in your SSP. For level 2, we are not going to ask you to provide the artifacts, because if you look at the scoping, the scoping guide, is not a requirement for us to ask for the artifacts for the specialized assets or the contractor risk managed assets. However, you need to document it in your SSP so we are able to assess, right? A few times we saw, for example, CNC machines. We discussed a little bit about the CNC machines. You have your G code. How do you protect the G code, right? If you actually put them into a separate segmented network, yeah, you just document it that way. But we have to know. Okay. So the number 7, are you familiar with the operational plan of action versus plan of action and milestone? So plan of action and milestone is a dirty word in CMMC, right? So you don't want to go and say, oh, we have a POAM, because POAM in the CMMC is like you have something that you have not implemented and you have a deficiency. So as an assessor, we're going to see you have a POAM and we cannot give you the credit for it, right? That will be considered the requirements are not met. However, if you have an operational plan of action, this is a CMMC specific term, right? It's documented in the 32 CFR Part 170, or if you look at the CMMC Assessment Guide, the version 2.13, look at the control 3.12.2, you will see operational plan of action. I know this, you probably are familiar, but some of the people that we talked to, they did not pick up that 3.12.3, the version that was released, I think it was last year, September last year, actually have an update. So now, operational plan of action. What it means is that if I have implemented something, then it becomes not compliant. I still have the opportunity to fix it. From the assessor point of view, it is a requirement that's met. You just need to do some additional work to correct remediate the deficiency. That's fine. Okay, and I think the CMMC Program Office created this operational plan of action specifically, and there's something tied into the temporary deficiency. It's related to the FIPS. FIPS is giving a lot of problem to the DoD, to the CMMC. So what it is that if you have a firewall, VPN, if you are transmitting CUI, then you need to have the FIPS validated firewall VPN, right? But FIPS certification take 18 months or more, right? So if I have the real example, like Fortinet, I have a version 7.6 or whatever version, the latest version. Now the latest version that's FIPS validated is version 7.2. I have a problem, but is that really a problem based on what CMMC Program Office, like, yeah, you can make it as a temporary deficiency or operational plan of action, then as assessor will mark it as the requirements are met. So Yeah, you just need to make sure that you understand what the operational plan of action is. Okay, number 8. So there is the ESP, the external service provider, the cloud service provider, managed service providers. You have to understand what you're inheriting, right? And then you have to document this inheritance in the system security plan. So as the assessor, when we go in to look at your SSP, we understand which controls are fully or partially inherited or not inherited. You have to let us know. And in order for you to know, you have to get the, Raj mentioned about the customer responsibility matrix, or you get your shared responsibility matrix from your the managed service provider, or MSP, so you understand what you can inherit from the CSP MSP. Okay. Okay, and also just to make sure that if you inherit some of the controls from the MSP, it doesn't mean that you are off the hook. You are still ultimately responsible for all the controls that's been implemented. You can inherit them, but you are still accountable for all the controls that's been implemented. Okay. And also, number 9, we are still going to look for evidence. So I think, I can remember, I think it mentioned about if you have MSP, if you use an MSP, maybe Joy, if you use an MSP, you have to extend your control, right? You have to extend your scope to these MSPs, right? And then you have to, when we come in to conduct the assessment, we're going to look for these artifacts from the MSP as well, right? So, for example, change management. Okay, who submitted the change? Okay, it's OSC submit the change. Then to the MSP make the change, right? And who actually verify the changes are done properly? Who actually done the security impact analysis, right? And so that whole change management process, we're going to look at the changes, how this actually flow. It's going to be from OSC to the MSP. We're going to look at the evidence, right, from the MSP. Where are the changes? And is that tied into the actual change that's made? Key personnel for the MSP, make sure they are not on vacation when we conduct the assessment. It happens. So, and also your own internal staff, make sure they are present during the interview week, because otherwise it could delay the entire process. Yeah, you might think it's funny, but it does happen. Okay, and also software. I think Mike Snyder mentioned about the software. Just how many people here have the organization develop custom software that handles UI? Do you have any? Okay, a few. Make sure your SSP and the network diagram and your scope diagram include these software pieces. Yeah, because IT, just so you know, IT, they don't talk to software people, right? And then it's just like, all right, show me your network diagram, show me your scope diagram. It's all look very nice, but where is your software development piece? Where all that section that you say you're developing software, you're providing API to your DoD customer. Why are they not on the scope? So, yeah, you want to actually make sure that you have covered all the systems that are in scope, and make sure you get all the people in the same room so you can talk through it and put all the requirements. So hopefully your IT and software people are talking. Yeah, because otherwise I'll be missing some of the software information. Okay. And here are some additional tips I think will be helpful for you. Make sure the scoping, as we have talked many times, scoping is very critical. Make sure you have the scope defined properly. And sometimes we actually go through the scoping, and actually it'll all look very good. And when we start doing the assessment, it's like, okay, so show me all the the ERP controls, right? Your ERP system, and in the middle of the assessment, it's like, so what kind of CUI do you handle? And they were just like, oh, ERP doesn't handle any CUI. So it's like, why do you actually keep them in scope, right? And then we just wasted like 5 hours talking about the ERP. So we just make sure that you have properly scoped. You understand what those scope. And also the gap assessment. This is all during your assessment preparation. Make sure you have somebody who are familiar with CMMC conduct your gap analysis, gap assessment, right? And make sure you have, obviously, smaller companies, they'll always have to fight for the budget, right? For the gap assessment, and also to get ready for the CMMC, but just do as best you can to prepare for the CMMC, because you don't want to find out at the end, like very close to the actual certification assessment, you know that you're not ready. Right, and also just to make sure that you have a dedicated resources to help with the certification assessment preparation process. I mean, we talked to some OSCs, and when we want to schedule, it's like, can we actually schedule for this week, or what week do you want to schedule? We want to schedule for the second week of March because that's when our intern are on the spring break, so we can use that as our assessment week. It's like, okay, so you don't have a full-time, you don't have somebody dedicated, and whoever is working on the CMMC actually a part-time student. So you clearly did not take this very seriously, right? So we have to educate, like, make sure you actually get some help and make sure you're ready, right? So support IT staff, those are important, get outside help if necessary. Okay, and here's our contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Any questions?
So if our contract has the DFARS clauses, it's got 7020, 7021, and 7012, they're all in there. But nothing in the contract, nothing in the solicitation is marked CUI in any way. Like, what does that mean, and what obligations do we have relative to our subcontractors in terms of determining whether they're actually CMMC certified if nothing in the contract is actually labeled CUI, but the DFARS clauses are there?
Yeah, I think, so what's driving the requirements is the contract itself. This is a lingering problem. I mean, this is not unique. I think all the contracts that's out there today, a lot of them are not marked. A lot of them either not marked or marked everything CUI, right? So there's two extreme. And I mean, not to pick on the Navy, but I've actually been to a industry day for Navy, and somebody's actually asked, why do you actually make everything CUI? So it's like, okay, we'll fix that. But I mean, to your point, it's really, I don't know if it's realistic, but it's something that you have to actually talk to the contracting officer to make sure that there is a data classification form to make sure that they provide exactly what are considered CUI. For the new contracts that's coming, new solicitations, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot more clear. But for the existing one, you might have to actually go back and then talk to your contracting officer. I mean, I heard about this strategy. If you cannot get the answer, or they're not really trained on how to identify CY, I think it's also another approach that you can actually draft up your email or something, probably a little bit less formal, but still in writing. We consider these information or CY. Do you, contracting officer, agree with it? If they will say, okay, yes, I agree, at least you have something that's in writing, and you can file it to your contract. Not sure if this is the best answer, but this, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, if you don't, I have some common questions.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh. All right, so how to choose a C3PAO? So this is the common question, right? Obviously you want to compare, talk to a few C3PAOs, and more important, C3PAO or the lead assessor that know your industry. If you're a manufacturer, and if I'm the lead assessor when I come in, it's like, what do you mean you have a CNC machine? What is a CNC machine? That'll be a problem, right? Because I don't know your business. And when I'm assessing the manufacturer, I don't even know what is the CNC machine. I don't know what is the G code. That'll be a problem. So you have to find somebody, find a C3PL that you feel comfortable that will be able to understand your business, and do a comparison and choose one that's suitable for you. Feel free to ask other questions, otherwise I have some questions here. Okay.
Repeat customer?
This is a quick, yeah. So you also had mentioned that if you're, when you get assessed, if your score, the OSC score is 88 or less, or maybe if it's 87 or less, then it would essentially convert to like a mock assessment and would not be reported in SPRS. Is that a KLC policy, or is that dictated by the CAP?
That's the CAP. Oh, that's the Cyber AB and also EMAS. Currently, I'm not sure if it's going to change, but currently, if there are anything that's basically did not pass, lower than 88, we'll have the pre-assessment submitted to EMAS, but we're not going to, not us, but all the C3PLs will not submit the actual final results to the EMAS. We will still let you know. We're going to still have the outbrief, let you know how you did, but that information is not going to submit out to the EMAS system. Okay. Okay.
We have one.
Okay.
To follow up on that question back there, you mentioned that you are not able to help people remediate the issue, or you tell them that they failed, but you don't give them a way to circumvent that control or satisfy that control. When they fail and you don't report it, do you help them with the remediation?
If you're going to come, so if the OSC is going to come back to the C3PAO to conduct the follow-up assessment, because we will essentially convert your assessment as a mock assessment, right? When you are done with the remediation, if you come back to us, then we will be able to we have to create another record on the EMAS and start the process over. But at least we will have a little bit understanding of your environment at that time. So if you come back to us, then if you want to come back to us as a C3PO, we cannot provide the remediation for your deficiency. But we'll let you know the deficiency, why there are deficiency in our outbrief. Yeah, go ahead.
For assessment, we've got 3 job site trailers on a military installation. Do you go and assess each job site trailer during the assessment?
Yeah, so these are very common for construction.
Yeah.
So right now, KLC, we do 100% on the assessment now. Before we were doing consulting, that is a very common situation where you have the trailer and then you print at the FedEx store. With a USB and print it for me. So it's pretty common. I mean, not picking on you, but it's a challenge for the construction. So yes, we will most likely will pick one. Probably doesn't have to be all trailers if they are very similar control. If they have a very similar controls.
Okay, and those are kind of covered through policies, not necessarily like enclaves, correct? Like we're not assessing because I mean our job site trailers change throughout the year,
Correct.
So.
Yeah, it may not be a specific location, but the control for your trailer, how you actually control your trailer is something that we still want to see from a physical security, or if there are any system devices that's attached to the trailer, we might want to actually see that as well. So it all depends on what is in scope. In scope may not be a location, but we have a scope for these 3 or 5 trailers.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We got one more back here, Kyle.
Okay.
Hi Kyle, Terry with Washington Apex Accelerator. I've had a number of clients over the months ask me the same question, and I didn't know quite how to answer it. And the question is kind of related to the one you just answered, and that is because a lot of employees are working remotely from home. How does the C3PAO conduct the audit when there's remote employees?
Yeah, so we consider that as an alternate work site. So if they work from home, they have to have does the company, how we assess, does the company have a telework, remote work from home policy? Do people read it? Do they sign the agreement? Or how do you actually train the users? And do they understand, do they have an agreement in place that they know what to do, how to protect the information?
Yeah, so related to that, the question is, does the auditor go out to the employee's work site or to the employee's home to do part of the audit?
Yeah, so we don't. Just too much liability. So in terms of if this is a physical, we have not come through that yet, but I understand there are some of the small organizations, they may have a home office, and that's the only home office with their hard drive or something, backup drive or something at their home. It just a little bit, right now we still have to get the guidance from the DoD because, well, first of all, I think I used to do this, and what I heard from my colleagues, right, they actually went to the residence doing the assessment, and the husband have to actually say, hey, honey, are you decent? And somebody's coming in. So we don't want to get into that situation where we might get shot, right? Yeah. So we try to avoid the residents.
All right, hey, real quick, guys. This is actually an incredible engagement. It's exactly what we're looking for. And Brandon Session with Ray Analytics has offered to share the stage tomorrow during his time at 1:45 with the other C3PAOs if they're available. So that way we can ask all these details and put them on the spot. So it's not just Kyle and Field, more guys up there sweating. But we will make that change online. Again, the program will shift slightly. Same time, but instead of the what's it take, how long does it take, and how much does it cost, you can ask them those questions, but it'll be a group of at least those 3 C3POs if they're available. So thank you very much, Val.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.